Security. Get this girl out of here before she embarrasses herself further. Benjamin Whitmore's voice cuts through the elegant ballroom like a blade, and he added, "Know your place." Two guards in black suits grab Zara by her arms, their grip tight enough to bruise as they drag her across the polished marble floor. Her worn leather portfolio flies open, scattering papers like fallen leaves while she struggles to maintain her dignity. "Oh my God, are you getting this?" Penelope Whitmore squeals to her friend, holding up her phone to record. "This is absolutely priceless." Around the ballroom, men in $1,000 tuxedos and women dripping in diamonds pull out their phones, treating this humiliation like prime entertainment. Harrison Whitmore III stands with his arms crossed, a satisfied smirk on his weathered face, as he watches a young black woman being manhandled by security. "Maybe next time you'll think twice before crashing events you don't belong at," Benjamin calls out, loud enough for everyone to hear and laugh at. The woman they're dragging shows no tears, no screaming, just a quiet dignity that somehow makes the scene even more disturbing. As the ornate doors slam shut behind her, the wealthy crowd erupts in applause, like they've just witnessed the best show of their lives. But here's what none of them knew. Here's what would make their smug laughter die in their throats just minutes later. That woman they just humiliated and threw out like garbage, she had the power to destroy every single one of their lives with a single phone call. But this starts 2 days before, when nobody knew who she really was. 48 hours earlier, a nervous young woman named Zara Chen Williams stepped out of an ordinary taxi in front of the most intimidating building she'd ever seen. The Whitmore Foundation headquarters rose like a gleaming tower of power and privilege, its glass walls reflecting clouds that seemed impossibly white against the blue sky. At 22 years old, Zara looked like any recent college graduate trying to make it in the business world. Her conservative navy blazer was perfectly pressed, but clearly not designer. Her shoes were practical, not fashionable. She clutched that same worn leather portfolio that would soon scatter across marble floors, the kind a struggling student might carry through 4 years of late-night study sessions. But Zara wasn't struggling. She wasn't ordinary. And that portfolio contained documents that would soon shake the very foundations of the building she was about to enter. Fresh out of Stanford with a computer science degree and a passion for AI ethics that burned brighter than her peers' desire for Silicon Valley salaries, Zara had a secret that would change everything. A secret so well guarded that even she sometimes forgot how powerful it made her. You see, when Zara was just 3 years old, a brilliant tech entrepreneur named David Chen Williams made a decision that would define both their lives. He adopted her, not for publicity or tax benefits like so many wealthy people do, but because he genuinely wanted to give a child the love and opportunities she deserved. But here's the crucial part. He kept her completely out of the spotlight. While other billionaires' children grew up with nannies, private jets, and their faces splashed across society magazines, Zara Chen Williams grew up normal. She rode public buses to a regular high school. She worked part-time jobs to understand the value of money. Her adoptive father, now one of the most powerful tech CEOs on the planet, made sure she earned everything through her own merit. She had no idea that her quiet, loving dad was the same David Chen Williams whose company was revolutionizing artificial intelligence, whose net worth made headlines, whose business decisions moved stock markets. To her, he was just the man who helped with homework and never missed a school play. But today, everything was about to change. As Zara walked through those intimidating glass doors, she was entering the world of the Whitmore family. And the Whitmores were everything you'd expect from old-money American royalty, and everything you'd hope they wouldn't be. Harrison Whitmore III, at 68, was the kind of man who believed the world owed him something, simply because his great-grandfather had struck oil in the right place at the right time. Tall, silver-haired, with the kind of commanding presence that came from never being told no, Harrison had built his identity around one simple belief. Some people were born to rule, and others were born to serve. His wife Penelope, 55 years old and still fighting aging like it was a personal enemy, had married into the Whitmore fortune and spent 3 decades perfecting the art of looking down on people. Every diamond on her fingers, every designer label on her body, every carefully highlighted strand of her hair was a weapon in her war against anyone she deemed beneath her station. But their son, Benjamin, was perhaps the worst of all. At 28, he'd never worked a real day in his life, never faced a consequence he couldn't buy his way out of, never met a person he didn't immediately categorize as either useful or disposable. Trust fund money had given him everything except character, and privilege had taught him that other people's feelings were just obstacles to his entertainment. The Whitmore Foundation's annual charity auction wasn't really about charity. It was about power. Every year, the biggest names in technology, finance, and industry gathered in the foundation's opulent ballroom to bid on exclusive partnership rights. These weren't just business deals, they were keys to an elite club where billion-dollar contracts were decided over champagne and caviar. But when Zara approached the registration desk, clutching her portfolio and trying to project confidence she didn't quite feel, the staff saw something completely different than what was actually standing in front of them. The woman behind the desk looked Zara up and down with barely concealed disdain. Her eyes lingered on the worn portfolio, the practical shoes, the young face that didn't belong in a room where most attendees were twice her age and 10 times her net worth. What happened next would set in motion a chain of events that would expose the ugliest truths about power, privilege, and what happens when people mistake kindness for weakness. Zara was about to learn that sometimes the most dangerous thing you can do is underestimate someone based on how they look. And the Whitmore family? They were about to learn that lesson in the most expensive way possible. Now here's where everything starts to unravel. And trust me, what you're about to witness will make your blood boil. Zara finally reaches the registration table, her hands steady despite the butterflies in her stomach. The registration clerk, a woman who clearly spent more on her manicure than most people spend on groceries, barely glances up from her clipboard. "I'm here to register for the auction," Zara says politely. "I'm representing Chen Williams Industries for the Renewable Energy Partnership bid." The clerk's perfectly penciled eyebrows shoot up like she just heard the most ridiculous thing in her life. Chen Williams Industries? The $900 million bid? She lets out a little laugh that sounds like breaking glass. "Sweetie, are you sure you have the right event? The career fair is probably downtown somewhere." But Zara doesn't flinch. She opens her worn portfolio and pulls out official documentation, each page bearing the unmistakable letterhead of one of the world's most powerful tech companies. "I have full authorization to represent the company's interests in today's auction." That's when Benjamin Whitmore, who'd been eavesdropping from his position near the champagne fountain, decides to make his grand entrance into what would become the biggest mistake of his privileged life. Wait, Benjamin calls out, his voice carrying that particular brand of arrogance that only comes from never being told no. He strides over with the confidence of someone who's never faced a consequence, his designer shoes clicking against the marble floor like a countdown to disaster. Did this little girl just say she's representing Chen Williams Industries? He looks around the room like he's about to deliver the punchline to the world's funniest joke. Chen Williams? The company that's worth more than some country's GDP? The conversation near them starts to die down as people turn to watch what's unfolding. Zara stands her ground, her voice calm and professional. "Yes, I'm here on behalf of my father's company to discuss the Renewable Energy Partnership." And that's when Benjamin Whitmore shows the world exactly what kind of person he really is. "Your father's company?" Benjamin bursts into laughter so loud it echoes off the vaulted ceiling. "Oh, this is rich. Daddy's little diversity hire is playing businesswoman for the day." The words hit the air like poison, and suddenly every conversation in the immediate area stops. People start turning, phones start coming out, and what should have been a simple business registration becomes a spectacle. Penelope Whitmore, never one to miss an opportunity to join in humiliating someone she considers beneath her, glides over like a vulture sensing fresh prey. Her diamonds catch the light as she looks Zara up and down with the kind of disdain usually reserved for something you'd scrape off your shoe. "Darling," Penelope says, her voice dripping with fake sweetness, "how exactly did you get an invitation to this event?" "Because I'm looking at you, and I'm thinking you might want to check with the coat room. They're probably hiring." Can you believe the audacity? Here's a woman who's never worked a day in her life, whose biggest accomplishment is marrying into money, suggesting that a Stanford graduate check the coat room for employment. The privilege is so thick, you could cut it with a knife. But here's what's making this even worse. Other attendees are now openly filming. These people, these pillars of society, are treating a young woman's humiliation like it's entertainment for their social media feeds. One man in a tuxedo that probably cost more than a car holds up his phone and actually says, "This is going straight to the group chat." A woman in pearls whispers to her friend, "Should we start a live stream?" And Zara stands there taking it all. But if you look closely, if you really pay attention, you can see the subtle signs of what this is costing her. Her jaw tightens just slightly. Her grip on that portfolio becomes a little firmer. There's a small muscle in her cheek that twitches when Benjamin calls her a diversity hire. She's not breaking, but she's human. And being human means that words like these, especially when they're designed to cut deep into your sense of worth and belonging, they leave marks even on the strongest people. Benjamin, apparently not satisfied with the level of humiliation he's already inflicted, decides to turn up the heat. "You know what I think happened here? I think someone felt sorry for you and gave you some fake documents as a prank. There's no way a real company would send." He pauses dramatically, gesturing at her simple outfit. This to represent a $900 million deal. The crowd is eating it up. These people who've probably never faced real adversity in their lives are watching a young woman get systematically destroyed, and they're loving every second of it. But there's someone else watching too. Someone who's been standing quietly in the corner, observing everything with the kind of sharp intelligence that comes from decades of reading people and situations. His name is Thomas Richardson, and at 73 years old, he's seen enough of the world to recognize something that everyone else in this room is missing. Thomas isn't just any guest at this auction. He's been on the Whitmore Foundation's board for over 20 years. And more importantly, he's one of the few people in this room who actually knows what real power looks like. While everyone else is focused on the spectacle, Thomas is studying Zara's face, her posture, the way she carries herself under pressure. There's something familiar about her, something that's nagging at the edges of his memory. He's seen that same quiet strength before, in boardrooms where billion-dollar decisions are made, in the faces of people who wield real influence. And then it hits him. The eyes, the way she stands, the calm in the face of chaos. Thomas Richardson has met David Chen Williams exactly 3 times in his life, and each time he was struck by the man's unusual combination of humility and unshakable confidence. Thomas is looking at Zara and he's seeing her father. But here's the question that should be terrifying everyone in this room right now. If Thomas Richardson, a man who's been moving in circles of real power for decades, recognizes something that nobody else does, what does that say about who Zara really is? What would you do in Zara's position? Would you maintain your composure, or would you fight back? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, because what happens next is going to change everything. And if you're as invested in this story as I am, if you want to see how justice gets served when privilege meets real power, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming next. Because while Benjamin and Penelope are having the time of their lives humiliating someone they think is powerless, they have no idea that they're about to learn the most expensive lesson of their privileged lives. The storm is coming, and they're standing right in its path. But before we watch this situation explode into something none of these people can take back, you need to understand exactly who they're messing with. Because the truth about Zara's father isn't just impressive, it's absolutely mind-blowing. Let's go back 15 years. to a small adoption agency where a successful tech entrepreneur was about to make the most important decision of his life. David Chen Williams wasn't looking for publicity or tax benefits when he walked through those doors. He was looking for something money couldn't buy: the chance to be a real father. At that time, David was already making waves in Silicon Valley. His artificial intelligence company was revolutionizing how machines learned and adapted. But unlike other tech moguls who seemed to live their entire lives in the spotlight, David made a choice that would define the next 2 decades. He kept his family completely private. Not just private in the way celebrities hide from paparazzi, private in a way that was almost unheard of in the tech world. No family photos at company events, no mentions of his daughter in interviews, no social media posts about school plays or graduation ceremonies. While other billionaire families had their children featured in lifestyle magazines and society pages, Zara Chen Williams grew up invisible to the public eye. She rode school buses instead of private jets. She worked summer jobs instead of internships handed to her by daddy's connections. She earned her Stanford admission through her own brilliance, not family donations. But here's what makes this even more incredible. By the time Zara graduated from Stanford, her adoptive father had become more than just successful. David Chen Williams was now the CEO of a company that didn't just participate in the tech industry, it shaped the future of artificial intelligence for the entire world. His company's market cap had grown to numbers that make your head spin. We're talking about a man whose business decisions influenced global markets, whose innovations were being used by governments and corporations across every continent. David Chen Williams had become one of the most powerful people on the planet, and somehow he'd managed to keep his daughter completely out of that world. Until today. Back in the ballroom, while Benjamin and Penelope are putting on their disgusting display of privilege and prejudice, Zara's phone starts buzzing insistently in her small purse. She can feel the vibrations, but she doesn't reach for it. Her focus is entirely on maintaining her dignity in the face of this public humiliation. But those messages? They're from her father's office. Urgent updates about the renewable energy partnership that could revolutionize how clean technology gets funded globally. Messages asking for her input on contract terms that would affect millions of people. Requests for her thoughts on AI ethics protocols that could shape the future of technology. While these people are treating her like she doesn't belong in the same room as them, Zara's phone is buzzing with the kind of responsibility that would terrify most people twice her age. She ignores every single message, choosing instead to stand her ground with a grace that her tormentors will never understand. Benjamin, apparently deciding that verbal humiliation isn't enough, takes things to a physical level that crosses every line of decency. He steps directly in front of Zara, his 6-foot frame looming over her as he blocks her path to the registration table. "You know what?" Benjamin says, his voice loud enough for everyone to hear. "I don't think you belong here at all. In fact, I think it's time for you to leave before you embarrass yourself any further." He's not just suggesting she leave, he's physically preventing her from conducting legitimate business. His body language is aggressive, intimidating, designed to make her feel small and powerless. Zara looks up at him with those same calm eyes that have been watching this entire spectacle unfold. "I have every right to be here, and I have legitimate business to conduct. Please step aside." But Benjamin's privilege has taught him that when someone asks him to stop doing something, it usually means he should do it more. "Rights? You think you have rights here? This isn't some public library, sweetheart. This is an exclusive event for serious players." That's when Penelope decides to escalate things beyond any reasonable boundary. She signals to the security guards stationed near the entrance, her diamond-encrusted hand waving them over like she's summoning servants. "Gentlemen," Penelope calls out in her most imperious voice, "we have a situation here. This young woman is disrupting our event and refusing to leave when asked." 2 security guards in expensive black suits start walking over, and suddenly the tenor of the entire situation changes. What started as social humiliation is now becoming something that could affect Zara's future, her reputation, her ability to conduct business. The crowd senses the shift. Phones that were recording for entertainment are now recording what looks like it might become a serious incident. People are stepping back, giving the security guards room to work, but nobody's putting their phones away. Thomas Richardson, who's been watching all of this unfold from his position near the wall, feels something cold settle in his stomach. In all his years on the Foundation's board, he's never seen behavior this appalling from the family that's supposed to represent their values. But more than that, his growing certainty about who Zara really is makes this situation exponentially worse than anyone realizes. If he's right about her identity, then the Whitmore family isn't just humiliating a young woman, they're declaring war on one of the most powerful people in the world. The security guards reach Zara, and one of them, clearly uncomfortable with the situation, but trained to follow orders from the Foundation's leadership, speaks in a low, professional voice. "Miss, I'm going to have to ask you to come with us." This is it. This is the moment where everything changes forever. As the guards gently but firmly take Zara by the arms to escort her out, she doesn't resist. She doesn't scream or cry or beg. She maintains that same dignity that's been driving her tormentors crazy this entire time. But as they walk her past Thomas Richardson, something extraordinary happens. Something so quiet that nobody else in the room notices, but so significant that it will reshape everything that happens next. Zara turns her head slightly toward Thomas, just enough so that only he can hear her words. Her voice is barely above a whisper, calm and clear and absolutely certain. "Tell them Chen Williams Industries withdraws all bids." Thomas Richardson feels the blood drain from his face. 7 words that confirm his worst fears and change everything he thought he knew about this situation. The guards continue walking, the crowd continues filming, Benjamin and Penelope continue basking in their moment of triumph. Nobody else heard what Zara just said. Nobody else understands that the most important moment of this entire evening just happened in a whisper that lasted less than 3 seconds. But Thomas heard it. And Thomas knows exactly what those 7 words mean. They mean that the Whitmore family just made the biggest mistake of their lives. They mean that a $900 million deal, a deal that could save their failing empire, just disappeared because they decided to humiliate someone based on how she looked. They mean that everything is about to change. As the ornate doors close behind Zara and her escorts, Thomas Richardson stands frozen in place, watching the Whitmore family celebrate what they think is a victory. They have no idea that they just witnessed their own destruction. And the worst part? They're still laughing. Outside the gleaming glass doors, Zara finally takes a breath. The cool evening air hits her face as she pulls out her phone, which has been buzzing non-stop for the last 10 minutes. 15 missed calls, 23 unread messages, all from the same contact, Dad. She swipes to answer just as another call comes through. "Zara? Sweetheart, I've been trying to reach you for 20 minutes. How did the presentation go?" The voice on the other end is warm, concerned, and belongs to one of the most powerful men in the world, though he's never sounded like anything other than a worried father. "It didn't go as planned, Dad." Zara's voice is steady, but there's something underneath it that David Chen Williams immediately picks up on. After 19 years of being her father, he knows when something's wrong. "What happened? Are you okay?" "I'm fine. But..." Zara pauses, looking back at the building where she just endured the most humiliating experience of her life. "I don't think the Whitmore Foundation is the right partner for our renewable energy initiative." There's silence on the other end. David Chen Williams didn't build a technology empire by making snap judgments, but he trusts his daughter's instincts completely. If she says the partnership isn't right, then it isn't right. "Okay, your call. Should I have legal pull the contracts?" "Already handled, Dad. I withdrew our bid." What Zara doesn't say, what she'll probably never tell him, is exactly how she was treated in that room. Because David Chen Williams, for all his patience and wisdom, has spent the last 19 years protecting his daughter from the kind of people who judge others by their appearance. Learning that she just faced that exact treatment might trigger a response that would make tonight's events look like a gentle disagreement. But inside the ballroom, something is happening that's about to turn the Whitmore family's world upside down. The evening's main auction is beginning, and the auctioneer, a distinguished man in his 60s who's been running these exclusive events for over a decade, steps up to the podium with his leather-bound folder of bids. Ladies and gentlemen, his voice carries easily across the opulent ballroom. We now come to the centerpiece of tonight's auction, the exclusive renewable energy partnership with the Whitmore Foundation. The crowd quiets, champagne glasses pausing halfway to lips. This is what most of them came for, not just to bid, but to see who has enough power to secure a partnership that could reshape the energy sector. We have received several impressive bids tonight, the auctioneer continues, but I'm pleased to announce that the winning bid comes from Chen Williams Industries with an unprecedented offer of $900 million for a 5-year exclusive partnership. The ballroom erupts. $900 million. The kind of number that makes even billionaires stop and take notice. But for Harrison Whitmore III, standing near the front of the room with his wife and son, this announcement isn't just impressive, it's salvation. See, what none of the guests at this gala know, what the Whitmore family has been desperately trying to hide, is that their oil empire is crumbling. Environmental regulations, renewable energy competition, and a series of catastrophic investments in outdated technology have left the Whitmore fortune hemorrhaging money at a rate that would terrify anyone who understood the numbers. The renewable energy partnership isn't just business for them. It's the lifeline that could save their family legacy from complete collapse. $900 million in partnership fees, plus the licensing deals and technology access that would come with it, represents the difference between remaining powerful and losing everything. Harrison feels his shoulders relax for the first time in months. $900 million. Enough to stabilize their oil holdings while transitioning into renewable energy. Enough to secure the Whitmore name for another generation. Penelope is already calculating how this will look in the society pages. A $900 million partnership with one of the world's most innovative companies. The kind of deal that would cement their position at the top of the social hierarchy. Benjamin is thinking about what $900 million means for his trust fund. His lifestyle, his ability to continue living without consequences. But their celebration is about to be cut short by 7 words that will destroy everything. Thomas Richardson, his face pale and his hands slightly trembling, approaches the Whitmore family with the expression of someone about to deliver the worst news of their lives. Harrison, we need to talk. Now. Harrison Whitmore III has known Thomas Richardson for over 2 decades. They've served on multiple boards together, navigated countless business crises, and Thomas has never, not once, looked this shaken. Thomas, what's wrong? We should be celebrating. $900 million. This partnership is going to. The Chen Williams representative just withdrew their bid. The words hit Harrison like a physical blow. His face goes from triumph to confusion to something approaching panic in the span of 3 seconds. What? What do you mean withdrew? The auctioneer just announced. The announcement was based on the original bid submission. The withdrawal just happened. Harrison, they're pulling out, all of it. The $900 million, the partnership, everything. Penelope steps forward, her champagne glass forgotten in her hand. That's impossible. You can't just withdraw a bid at this level. There are contracts, procedures. The bid was withdrawn by someone with full signing authority. Thomas's voice is getting quieter, which somehow makes his words more terrifying. Someone who had the power to make that decision unilaterally. Benjamin, who's been listening with growing irritation, suddenly bursts into laughter. The same arrogant laugh that filled the room when he was humiliating Zara. Oh, come on. You're talking about that girl we just had thrown out, aren't you? The one pretending to represent Chen Williams? Thomas, she was obviously some kind of scammer. Probably had fake documents and everything. There's no way that little nobody had the authority to withdraw a $900 million bid. Thomas Richardson looks at Benjamin Whitmore. And for a moment, there's something almost like pity in his eyes. Pity for someone who's about to learn that their entire understanding of the world is wrong. That girl, Thomas says, his voice carrying the weight of someone who's about to detonate a bomb, was David Chen Williams's daughter, and she had full signing authority for all Chen Williams Industries business dealings. The silence that follows is deafening. You could hear a pin drop in that ballroom, if pins made sounds when they landed on shattered dreams. Harrison Whitmore's face goes white. Penelope's champagne glass slips from her fingers and shatters on the marble floor. Benjamin's arrogant smile freezes, then slowly melts into something approaching terror. That's not possible. Harrison whispers. David Chen Williams doesn't have a daughter. There's never been any mention of family in any of his profiles, any interviews. He adopted her when she was 3 years old and kept her completely out of the public eye. Thomas continues, his voice steady but filled with the kind of quiet horror that comes from watching something irreversible happen. She graduated summa cum laude from Stanford with a degree in computer science and AI ethics. She's been working with her father's company on renewable energy initiatives for the past year. The implications start hitting them one by one, like dominoes falling in slow motion. The girl we just... Penelope's voice trails off. The daughter of one of the most powerful men in the world, Thomas confirms. The daughter you called a diversity hire. The daughter you suggested should check the coat room for employment. The daughter you had physically removed from the premises for trying to conduct legitimate business. Benjamin's face has gone from white to green. But she looked so ordinary. Her clothes, her portfolio, the way she what, Benjamin? Thomas's voice cuts through the air like a blade. The way she didn't look like your idea of what power should look like. The way she didn't announce her importance the moment she walked in the room. And suddenly, Harrison Whitmore III understands the full scope of what his family has just done. They didn't just humiliate a young woman. They didn't just make a social mistake that could be smoothed over with apologies and donations. They declared war on David Chen Williams. They attacked his daughter. They made it personal with a man who has the power to destroy them completely. $900 million. Their salvation. Their future. Their legacy. Gone. All of it. Because his son couldn't resist mocking someone he thought was powerless, and his wife couldn't resist joining in the cruelty. The auctioneer's voice cuts through the stunned silence. Ladies and gentlemen, I've just been informed that Chen Williams Industries has withdrawn their bid. We'll now move to the second highest offer. But Harrison Whitmore isn't listening anymore. He's calculating how long his family has before everything they've built collapses completely. And the answer is terrifying. What happens next is like watching a financial empire collapse in real time. And trust me, it's both terrifying and absolutely satisfying. The moment Thomas finishes explaining who Zara really is, chaos doesn't just erupt in the Whitmore family. It spreads through that ballroom like wildfire. Harrison Whitmore starts pacing, his silver hair disheveled, as he runs his hands through it repeatedly. His face has gone from its usual commanding presence to something that looks dangerously close to panic. 900 million, he keeps muttering under his breath. $900 million. Penelope has gone completely silent, which is perhaps more terrifying than if she were screaming. She's staring at the shattered champagne glass at her feet like it represents everything that's about to break in her life. Her carefully constructed world of social superiority is cracking just as completely as that crystal. But Benjamin? Benjamin is having what can only be described as a complete meltdown. This can't be happening, he keeps saying, loud enough for nearby guests to hear. That girl was nobody. She was nothing. She couldn't possibly have that kind of power. And that's when the vultures start circling. You see, in the world of ultra-high-stakes business, news travels faster than gossip at a high school reunion. Within minutes, every major player in that ballroom knows that the Whitmore family just lost a $900 million deal because they humiliated the wrong person. The Hendricks Group, who had the second highest bid at $400 million, suddenly announces they're withdrawing their offer. Upon reflection, their representative declares loud enough for everyone to hear, "We don't feel the Whitmore Foundation aligns with our company values." Translation: they smell blood in the water, and they don't want to be associated with what's about to become a public relations disaster. Then Morrison Technologies pulls out. Then Blackstone Energy. Then every other serious bidder in the room starts finding reasons why they suddenly need to reconsider their offers. It's like watching dominoes fall, except each domino represents millions of dollars and years of potential partnerships disappearing into thin air. Harrison Whitmore watches his family's salvation evaporate bid by bid, and the look on his face is the kind of desperation you usually only see in disaster movies. These weren't just business deals. They were the foundation's entire funding for the next 5 years. Without them, the Whitmore Foundation doesn't just lose money, it loses relevance, credibility, and any hope of remaining a major player in the philanthropic world. But just when you think this story can't get any more dramatic, the ballroom doors open and Zara walks back in. But she's not alone this time. She's flanked by 2 men in expensive suits who move with the kind of quiet professionalism that screams high-level security. Behind them, a woman in a perfectly tailored business suit carries a briefcase that probably contains enough legal documents to bury someone in paperwork for the next decade. The entire room goes silent. Every conversation stops. Every champagne glass freezes halfway to every mouth, because everyone in that room now knows exactly who Zara is and what her presence means. But here's what makes this moment absolutely powerful. Zara doesn't look angry. She doesn't look vindictive or petty or interested in rubbing anyone's face in their mistake. She looks composed, dignified, and somehow sadder than when she left. She walks to the center of the ballroom, her simple black dress and practical shoes now looking less like signs of someone who doesn't belong, and more like evidence of someone who doesn't need expensive things to command respect. The microphone the auctioneer was using is still set up, and Zara approaches it with the same quiet confidence she's shown throughout this entire ordeal. When she speaks, her voice carries clearly across the silent ballroom. "I came here tonight believing in the mission of this foundation," she begins, and you can hear a pin drop. "I wanted to help fund educational programs for underprivileged youth. I wanted to use my father's resources to create opportunities for young people who face barriers to success." She pauses, and in that silence, you can practically feel the guilt settling over everyone who watched her humiliation earlier. "Instead, I learned what you really think of people like me. I learned that in your world, worth is measured by how much someone spends on their clothes, or how loudly they announce their importance, or how much they look like your idea of what success should look like." Benjamin Whitmore, who spent the evening mocking her, now can't even meet her eyes. "I learned that kindness can be mistaken for weakness, and that dignity in the face of cruelty can be seen as an invitation for more cruelty." Penelope Whitmore's face is flushed with what might be the first genuine shame she's felt in decades. But most importantly, I learned that this foundation, as it currently operates, is not the right vehicle for the kind of change I want to create in the world. And that's when Thomas Richardson steps forward with news that will finish what Zara started. "Ladies and gentlemen," Thomas announces, his voice carrying the authority of someone who's been on the foundation's board for over 20 years. "I want you to know that everything that happened here tonight has been documented for review by the Foundation's Board of Directors." Harrison Whitmore's face goes white. "Thomas, surely we can discuss this privately." "The behavior displayed by the Whitmore family tonight," Thomas continues, "represents a fundamental violation of everything this foundation claims to stand for. Effective immediately, I will be recommending to the board that the Whitmore family be removed from all leadership positions." The gasps that echo through the ballroom sound like air being sucked out of the room. The Whitmore Foundation without the Whitmores? It's like announcing that gravity has decided to take a vacation. "Furthermore," Thomas adds, "I will be recommending that we restructure our partnership criteria to ensure that we work only with organizations that demonstrate genuine commitment to equality and human dignity." Benjamin finally finds his voice, but it comes out as a whisper. You can't do this. This is our foundation. Our family built this. Thomas looks at him with the kind of calm that comes from absolute moral certainty. Your family's money built this foundation, Benjamin. But your family's behavior tonight has shown that you're no longer worthy to lead it. 6 months later, something beautiful happens. Zara Chen Williams announces the launch of the Opportunity Foundation, a new organization dedicated to supporting young people who face discrimination in business, technology, and entrepreneurship. The foundation's initial funding? $900 million. The exact amount that would have gone to the Whitmore Foundation if they hadn't decided to judge someone by their appearance. But here's what makes this even more incredible. The Opportunity Foundation doesn't just write checks. It provides mentorship, legal support, and business incubation for young entrepreneurs who've been told they don't belong in boardrooms, who've been dismissed because of their age, their background, or the color of their skin. The first class of recipients includes a brilliant young programmer who was told she was too young to understand real business, a black entrepreneur who was laughed out of investor meetings, and a first-generation college graduate who was told that people like him don't become CEOs. Every single one of them reminds Zara of herself, standing in that ballroom, facing people who thought they could determine her worth based on how she looked. As for the Whitmore family, Harrison's oil empire finally collapsed 6 months after losing the partnership deal. Penelope had to sell most of her jewelry to pay legal fees. And Benjamin? He's working his first real job in his life, trying to understand what it means to earn something instead of inherit it. The Whitmore Foundation still exists, but under new leadership that actually cares about the foundation's mission instead of using it as a social club for the wealthy. What would you have done in Zara's position? Would you have started your own foundation or found another way to make change? Let me know in the comments, because this story shows us something powerful about how real change happens. And if this story moved you, if it made you think about how we treat people who don't look like our idea of success, then hit that subscribe button, and also tell me in the comment section from which city in the world are you watching this story. Because stories like this one remind us that sometimes the most powerful response to prejudice isn't anger, it's success. Sometimes the best revenge is living well, creating change, and proving that the people who tried to diminish you were wrong about everything that matters. Zara Chen Williams walked into that ballroom wanting to help people. She left having learned that sometimes you have to build your own table when the one you're offered isn't worthy of your presence. And that $900 million foundation she created? It's helping hundreds of young people who were told they didn't belong, proving that they absolutely do. Because in the end, dignity always wins. Character always matters. And people who judge others by their appearance, they always pay the price. The only question is, what kind of person do you want to be when you meet someone who doesn't look like your idea of success? Because trust me, that moment will come for all of us. And when it does, remember Zara. Remember that the quiet person in the corner might just have the power to change your world. Remember that kindness costs nothing, but cruelty can cost everything. Remember that sometimes, the most important person in the room is the one nobody's paying attention to.